Hey, MCE crew, we've talked a lot about President Biden's nominee for the Comptroller of the Currency, Saule Omarova, and we've seen how she wants to end your relationship with a private bank. If she were to become nominated for the, or she were to be confirmed for the position of Comptroller of the Currency, she'd have purview over 1,200 banking institutions, including yours. And we have heard her say in previous video that what she wants to do is end banks and set up a situation where your money is controlled by the Federal Reserve Bank. Now, let's talk for a moment about the Federal Reserve Bank. It is not federal, so the Congress has no control over it. It's an independent, quasi-governmental operation. It has no reserves, okay? And it's not a bank. You cannot walk in there and deposit anything or expect to get a loan. Okay, so its name is totally designed to have you think that it is something it is not. Now, I want to stress, they have no accountability to you. Right now, you can call your congressman or your senator and you can voice your opinion, okay, and tell him or her what you think about certain issues. And what you should be doing is calling them and telling them that they should not vote to confirm Saule Omarova as the Comptroller of the Currency, because we've heard her say that she wants to get rid of private banks. She wants your money to be controlled by the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank. And so what's going on right now is we're going through the confirmation hearings for Professor Omarova. And I'm happy to see that some of the Republican senators, even some of the Democrats actually, are pushing back and asking her some questions about, her views, her communist views. Now, I don't know, maybe the fix is in and they're just exercising some political theater. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to listen to first Senator Toomey. Now, this is where your money and politics intersect in the limelight. It happens a lot, okay? But you're not seeing this on the news. This is why I don't watch the news. The news is all crap. You're not seeing this kind of stuff on the news. Toomey and Kennedy, senators. First up, Toomey. He's going to walk you through what at least the Republican senators are seeing in terms of the reality of what Saule Omrova represents, okay, for this country. And if the Fed, they're having this debate right now as to whether or not the Fed has the authority to do what Omarova suggests, which is pulling the deposit power away from the private banks and giving it to the Fed. Okay, so there's a debate about that. To me, making such a bold move should go toward a referendum-style question of the citizens who actually have expended labor to get the money in the first place, labor or skill to generate the money in the first place. But basically what Omarova is setting up here, and remember, the fact that she's been nominated speaks volumes. Even if she doesn't get it, this telegraphs where the liberals want, the leftists want to take this nation, want to take your money. So even if she doesn't get it, they're telling you what they want is a situation wherein you really don't have any money. It is controlled by the Fed. Okay, so you go out and you expend your labor, you expend your, temporal capital, your time, your skill, and then you're generating capital that's going straight to the Fed. Okay, it doesn't have the benefit of being controlled by you anymore. And we also heard her say in that video we did, look for it on the timeline, on the look for it in the channel just a few days ago. We heard her say that she even feels, and Toomey's going to mention this, she even feels like during certain inflationary times, the Fed should have the ability to cut you off from your money and prevent you from spending it in order to control inflation. Now, what she's not saying is she probably also feels as though the government should be able to do that on in other instances. Say if you don't take a certain medication and you want to get fly and think that you are a sovereign individual human being capable of making your own decisions, they can probably cut you off then too. If they have the ability to cut you off for one thing, then they can also cut you off for anything else conceivably. So let's hear from Toomey. And it's important what he's saying, because he's putting it on the public record and he's letting people know that the United States Senate understands what's going on here, at least on the Republican side.
Let me begin by acknowledging that Professor Omarova's thesis was certainly written a long time ago. The reason it is relevant is because it was advertised on her resume up through 2017. I think it would be completely relevant to this discussion. What apparently some of my Democratic colleagues want to really avoid is a full discussion of her policy views, but that's what we're going to have this morning. Now, I've read a variety of Professor Omarova's writings. I've watched her videos of her speaking. I have absolutely no doubt she's extremely intelligent, very knowledgeable, and she's an experienced law professor. My concern with Professor Omarova is her long history of promoting ideas that she herself describes as, quote, radical, end quote. I agree that they're radical, and they can fairly be described also as socialist. In fact, I've never seen a more radical nominee to be a federal regulator, and I'll be using her words. Let's talk about some of Professor Omarova's radical ideas. For starters, we know she wants to, and I quote, effectively end banking as we know it, end quote. Now, what does that mean? Well, she's told us what that means. In, quote, the People's Ledger, that's the name of a paper that she wrote, she published just last month. She outlined her plan for nationalizing retail banking. Under her plan, and I quote, central bank accounts fully replace, rather than uneasily coexist with, private bank deposits, end quote. So in other words, you couldn't have an account with a community bank. Your money would be held by the government at the Federal Reserve. Now, I remember well countless Pennsylvanians outraged over recent Democrat plans for the IRS to get a certain amount of personal banking information. Imagine their reaction to having the government actually take over their bank accounts. Professor Omarova also has a proposal to control the money supply through these individual Fed accounts, as she calls them, including when necessary, and I quote, implementing a contractionary monetary policy by debiting those accounts. Now, for those who are not accountants, debiting means basically subtracting. This, she allows, could be, and I quote, perceived as the government taking away people's money, end quote. Well, I think I know why it would be perceived that way, because it would be the government taking away people's money. Professor Omarova says, again in the People's Ledger, that one reason she wants the Fed to become everyone's bank is to, and I quote, maximize its capacity to channel credit to productive uses in the nation's economy, end quote.
Okay, next up, we're going to hear from Senator Kennedy. Now, he's a little bit more colorful in his opposition to the confirmation of Omarova. You can tell pretty much flat out he's not voting for this lady, and thank God for that. If you've got a situation, what we're dealing with right now is the United States understands that it's broke. It understands that the over $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, totally insurmountable, okay? We're racking up debt. We just did the infrastructure bill. Now we're going to do some other kind of human infrastructure bill, which in and of itself, the name of that, how dare they, human infrastructure. They're telling you what they think about you. We're going to do that next. That's a multi-trillion-dollar bill. They're just obviously not even giving a damn about the value of the dollar, which is losing about 1% of its value every month now. So, as I keep saying, the dollar is no longer going to be the world's reserve currency once we get into the early 2030s. There's no way the rest of the world is going to continue to put up with this. You see the central banks buying gold. So what Omarova and others want to do is they want to be able to get that money that you're generating, okay, through your labor, your skill, and they want to make it the purview of the United States of America. They don't want you to have control of your money. So basically, they want you to be a slave, okay? Because they'll act like a company store and they'll decide ultimately, how much of your money you should have and, what you should be able to use it on. And you might wonder, well, how are they going to do that? Well, because they're also pushing the development of the central bank digital currency, or the Fed coin, which abolishes paper dollars and, coins and all that. And you'll have a ledger stored at the Federal Reserve, tell you how much money you got. And guess what? I want you to do this. Go look up the Federal Reserve's telephone number. See how easy it is to contact them. So if you've got a discrepancy with your account right now, you can run down to the branch or call your bank and you can talk about it. How responsive and accountable do you think the Federal Reserve Bank is going to be when it comes to your money? No, they're not going to be accountable at all. In fact, they're going to tell you to, pound sand, basically, if you're able to get in touch with them at all. Ever try calling the IRS? Okay. You could be on hold literally all day long. And that's just the way it is. Who else you going to call? Okay. So who else you going to call to get your money if the Fed controls it? They won't have to adhere to any quality standards like your bank does, because you could take your money out of Wells Fargo and march it down to Bank of America any day of the week. And they know that. So, there's some quality of service that is there in the private banking system. All right, so let's hear from Senator Kennedy as he puts it to Saule Omarova and basically exposes her for what she is. Let's not pull any punches here, because we're talking about our money, okay? She's a communist. And nobody's saying that they have a problem with where she was born. I saw one Democrat try to take that angle. They're always trying to divide on race or ethnicity or gender or sexual preference or something like that. Some Democrat tried to do that crap. But look, no one cares where this woman was born. What we care about is what she has said and written recently. It's not like she, wrote these things 30 years ago. She wrote some of the stuff last year. She wrote some of it last month. Okay? So the People's Ledger, that paper she wrote that a few months ago. So she's a communist. She's lying if she says, well, I don't know. I don't hold those views. Lady, you're lying. We showed her talking about it in her own words on that video we did. Okay? So go ahead and listen to Kennedy. Stick it to her.
You wrote your thesis in college at Moscow State University the title was Karl Marx's Economic Analysis and the Theory of Revolution in the Capital. But you won't send Senator Toomey a copy. You studied at Moscow State University, scientific communism, which is the science regarding the working class struggle and the socialist agenda. In 2019, not 30 years ago, in a Canadian documentary, you called the financial services industry, quote, a quintessential asshole industry. You wrote a paper called Systemically Significant Prices, calling for the federal government to set wages, food, gas prices. In 2020, you wrote a paper called The People's Ledger, where you said we need to abolish bank accounts and make everybody set up an account at the Fed where the federal government will have access to your data. In 2020, you wrote another paper called The Climate Case for a National Investment Authority, where you said what we need to do, the oil and gas industry, is have the federal government bankrupt them so we can tackle climate change. In 2019, you joined a Facebook group, a Marxist Facebook group, to discuss socialist and anti-capitalist views. Now, that's what I see from your record, and you have the right to believe every one of these things. You do. This is America. But I don't mean any disrespect. I don't know whether to call you professor or comrade.
Okay, so what you need to do is you need to call your senator. I don't care, senators. You need to call both of them, and you need to express your discontent at the fact that this woman was even nominated, okay? Let alone, tell them that you can't believe they're going to actually cast a vote for a communist. That's what she is. And it has nothing to do with where she was born. There are plenty of people that were born in oppressive regimes that totally discarded those ideologies. They wanted to get out of there. Miami is full of people like that. You've got the young lady who's the Korean activist who escaped from North Korea, Yeonmi Park. I had to pause that for a second because she's a very powerful speaker. And she came out of North Korea and is engaged in this battle with that oppressive, demonic regime, letting people know what they're all about. So it has nothing to do with where Saule Omrova was born or lived. It has everything to do with the ideology she espouses. She wants you to be a slave. She basically wants to mirror what was going on in the Soviet Union, where basically your labor went into benefiting the state, capital S, okay? Your labor could not go into feeding your ambitions, okay, and what you wanted to do with your personal life. And don't let anybody tell you there's something wrong with that, okay? No, you were endowed naturally with ambition. There are things you want to do. There may be things that you want to possess, and that's okay, as long as you're not violating the rights of anyone else. So how dare Saule Omrova violate our rights, or even think about violating our rights to our own labor, the fruits of our own labor, okay? So that's what we have going on out here. Call your senator. Tell him that this is bad news, if you believe it to be so, and express your opinion while you can. Because if she gets in and she's able to implement half of the stuff she's talking about, you're not contacting the Fed. They're not accountable to you. The Fed chair is not a vote by the people, okay? That's someone who's put up by the president, and then, they're confirmed, but you don't have any say in that, all right? Okay, guys, so I will talk to you soon.